Here comes a confession. Now, we should say right at the very beginning that if you are eating your dinner,
hey,
it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah,
that's all. There's everything is entirely natural, but it might be that you're thinking, "Oh, really? Please?" At this time, sufficient warning. PG comes from Kiri, as in Takanawa. So it's Kiri, Kiri. Dear Father Simon and the Forgiving Collective, my terrible sin took place some 13 years ago when I was a young, slightly disorganised mother who feared terribly what people might think of me. And we all suffer from that just a bit. It all began after yet another sleepless night, approximately 12 months into my new life of being a mum. Tired doesn't really describe the feeling of being woken again and again every 2 hours for a period of months, which may go some way to explaining why I wasn't raring to get up in the morning to leap into the day's activities. However, on this day, my son and I did have an activity planned, so I did get out of bed, albeit in a fashion more like cold custard being poured out of a jug. You get the picture. It was approximately 8:20 a.m. by the time I'd managed to dress myself and the small child, who invariably delayed the process by using every tactic known to small children. By the time we managed to get down to breakfast, it was pushing 8:35, so we were definitely pushing our limits time-wise. It was therefore a quick shoveling in of a bowl of cornflakes for us both before heading off for our morning activity. Okay. Now, as luck would have it, traffic was light that day and we arrived at the leisure centre in plenty of time and even before others had arrived. To my pleasant surprise, getting changed went surprisingly well. My son was cheery and clearly looking forward to what was in store. In fact, we'd done so well that we were the first to get ready and get through to the swimming pool. This is where we were, of course, where the very popular baby and toddler swimming session took place. And all before 9 a.m. I am an amazing mum, thought Kiri. I have got this cracked. Don't get too far ahead of me.
No.
It was customary to enter the pool as and when you were ready and have a gentle little splash whilst waiting for the remainder of the participants and the swimming teacher, and so it was with great delight that my son and I climbed into the virgin water of that day, my stress and tiredness quickly dissipating. I floated my baby around as if I was in some kind of dream and lifted him in and out of the water, cooing at him in wonderment. This is what motherhood was all about.
Correct.
It was just about then that my beautiful little miracle had a little cough.
Oh, no.
Poor little love was teething, which made him a little bit mucusy. Then, for some bizarre reason, it flashed through my mind, precisely at this point, I wonder what happens when a child is sick in the swimming pool.
Oh, right.
And then,
yes,
miraculously, it was so. No sooner had I thought about it than it happened. My blissful romantic moment came crashing down as the cornflake slick began to spread out across the pool. A stream of curdled milk with cornflakes poured over my chest and down into my swimming costume.
Right.
I stood with my vomiting baby in the air, shouting for someone to help and rescue me from the cornflake nightmare in which I found myself. To my relief, a lifeguard quickly came to my aid and helped me and my son get out of the now cornflake-contaminated pool. But as I looked down, to my horror, with all the movement, the contents of my son's stomach was now steadily diffusing its way around much of the swimming pool. The lifeguard informed me he'd have to get the manager to speak to me, so I stood on the side of the pool, dripping wet, cornflakes in my cleavage, and curdled... I'm sure that's...
in my cleavage.
Isn't that a book by Hattie Jakes?
It's Carly Simon, isn't it?
Anyway, curdled milk was slowly sliding down my legs. I was clutching my son, who was perfectly all right after his cough, the way kids are. It recovered immediately. Anyway, oblivious to the horror that was unfolding in front of me. Awkwardly, I waited until the very neat, quite officious and suited man approached me. Once he'd established we were okay, he then said, I must ask, I'm afraid, but at what time did you feed your child this morning? Well, I took a quick look at the clock on the wall behind the man. It was only just 9 a.m, meaning I'd only fed my son a mere 20 minutes or so before. What an idiot. Everyone knows you shouldn't eat before swimming. But I had fed my baby straight before coming swimming, and look at what had happened. How irresponsible could I be? Terrified of being labelled the blithering, incompetent mother that I had clearly been, I did the only thing that I could think. I lied. Not by much, but just a little bit, so that it didn't seem as though I had been completely incompetent. Must have been about 8:15, something like that, I said, looking guiltily at the crowd of mothers and toddlers slowly gathering at the side of the pool, who were all looking at the contents of the pool with varying degrees of disgust. Are you sure it was 8:15, says the manager. Yes, I replied, definitely 8:15, no later than that. Everyone knows you shouldn't eat too close before going swimming. I added as I cringed further, cornflakes now accumulating in little puddles of milky water around my feet. That's really frustrating, exclaimed the manager. Had it been 8:30 or afterwards, we could have been fairly sure it wasn't a bug that had caused the vomiting. But as it was that you clearly fed him, we'll have to cancel the whole day's activities and we'll have to empty the pool completely.
No.
Oh, this was bad, says Kiri. The pool didn't need emptying, but how could I now backtrack and tell the important man that I'd lied? My incompetence was spiralling out of control. The manager charged off to begin implementing the clearly very arduous task that lay before him. I was left standing on the side of the pool, facing a crowd of people, many of whom now had toddlers that were crying because they weren't able to have their swim that they'd spent days looking forward to. Forgiveness is clearly needed from the young lifeguard who probably could have done without having to deal with a vomit-covered panicked woman and her child first thing in the morning. Also from all the parents and their children who missed out on their swimming lesson that day, and most of whom were very supportive and said that anyone's child could be unexpectedly sick in the pool. And I suppose that's true. But mostly, Father Simon, I asked forgiveness from my son. I confess that this incident scarred me so badly I was too afraid to take him swimming again for years after that. He did eventually learn to swim, and now age 14 is a competent swimmer, but doesn't really enjoy it, for which I feel wholly responsible, as I imagine that images of cornflakes in my cleavage are never, ever going to be a help for anybody. It is a good name for a memoir, you've got to say. Sister Bobby.
Oh, I feel really sorry for you. Heartbroken even. That must have been really distressing and uncomfortable. What I don't like is the manager, actually. If he'd even phrased it differently and said, look, just so we know what to do next, if he was fed just a few minutes ago, that would be great, because of course what you're trying to do is defend yourself. If you said that, then we don't have to close down the pool, and then you could have just been honest. And I suppose they would have netted the rest of the contents of the pool, or drained it, or had to do something. I don't know. I think it's unfortunate. I'm sure any parent with a child, whether you're a guardian or whether they're your own, has been caught out in a swimming pool in some way. There's two ends to them.
What?
Well, there's two ends to children, and they get into all sorts of trouble, don't they? You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's two ends to them. What I'm
There
saying
are two
is,
ends.
I'm sure they've seen many things in the pool, but not necessarily in your cleavage. Anyway, so what I'm saying is, I'm forgiving.
Thank you
after
very
that
much
long-winded way round.
Cleavage. Yes, this must happen all the time. It must. I mean, these mother and baby, or parent and baby, where they go into the pool, and, I have my experience of my child when he was, very small, there's no way you're going to be able to legislate for when something is going to happen. So, it must happen all the time. And I must admit, if someone had said to me, when did you feed your child before you came here? My response would not have been very pleasant. I will be feeding my child when I see fit to feed my child, and
You
not
nosy
when...
Parker.
Quite right. But as it turned out, it was for the best of reasons. So I'm going to forgive, because, there's nothing you could have done. And it's what a shame you didn't go back into the pool, but never mind.